I'm Crystal Adkins. I'm an engineer for Revelry Labs. Revelry is based here in New Orleans. However, I am one of the remote engineers. I'm based in Kentucky. So it's been a fun little journey. So a little bit about me. I started engineering in 2017. I actually started as a native Android developer, which is really fun because like Java and Java. It's Java. I did wind up teaching like Java and Android development for about a year and a half. The company I was working for was, we're gonna teach. So I taught high school students coding for a little while. And I learned that I enjoy coding. It's not as fun when you have to teach it though. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna go find somewhere else. I had a company that took a chance on me and was like, we know you don't know Elixir, but we think you'd be good at it. I don't want to touch any other language. Yeah, and so ever since then, I've worked at a couple other companies that have worked in Elixir, and specifically, I started working with Liveview early to mid 2020. We were using it in production at the company I was with. Obviously, it was really hard to work with all the changes, but we loved the functionality so much that we were willing to deal with all of those changes every few weeks. And I actually joined the team at Revelry around late 2020. So let's talk about this. Why Liveview? Why Web3? I don't specifically work with Web3, but we get so many potential partners coming to us who are like, we want to work in Web3, we want to work in the blockchain, or they come to us with apps that have already been built that use Web3 and blockchain. They use like things like React, Angular. They just use a lot of frameworks that make me really sad. And even when we have been building apps from the ground up in these using Web3, we tend to focus our attention on like, we're just going to build it in React. We don't have to do that. We don't have to do it. And so the biggest thing is like Web3 is not going anywhere. I know there's lots of talk about the ins and outs of Web3. Like, it's pretty controversial right now, I think. However, it's not going anywhere. It is essentially going to be the next iteration of tech as we know it. And I think that it's important for us to familiarize ourselves with it and use it in something like the stack that we love so much, right? So I'm going to be going over a little project that I've created to kind of show you how all of this is kind of put together. So there's actually a lot of setup that went into this. So the Truffle CLI, which handles smart contracts. Smart contracts are essentially, they're just functions. It's just a module of functions to handle blockchain interactions. So I also use Ganache. So Ganache is what actually is going to run this blockchain locally. You don't have to use Ganache. I just chose to because it was like the easiest to set up. You do have to know a little bit of Solidity, which that's what you're going to write your contracts in. I didn't know any Solidity before I started this project. I was able to pick up on it really quick. It's super easy. So there is one dependency that I did find for Elixir in general that was not bad. It's maintained more than any of the other ones we have. It's called Web3x. And it is a fork of the EXW3 dependency. And so because I used Web3x, I also had to have Rust installed. There was a lot of hoopla, sorry, that went with getting this set up because Rust and for some reason Rust didn't want to compile right? So I do have a link, so my slides will be available like later. I do have a link because I have a lot of gotchas when it comes to actually setting up this project that I think are really important for anybody who is wanting to either take this code base that I have and play with it or create something of their own with, with these things. So The other three things that, just for general setup, phx.gen.auth just gives us our gen.auth flow. Mix phx.gen.cert. So this is kind of important because we're using Metamask, and Metamask requires all interactions with it to be over HTTPS. And so to be able to do that, thankfully, Phoenix gives us the gen.cert ability. There are a few things with that, though, that if you're using Chrome especially, like I do, there was a lot of setup that had to happen with allowing, was it unsigned certs on local hosts and things like that. And I talk about it in those notes. And then finally, it's going to be Metamask. So Metamask is just going to be our wallet or tool for working with Web3 that is going to be just a plugin that you use in your browser. So here's the overview of essentially like how this had to happen. I knitted a truffle box. So because I wanted like I said, I'm not a Web3 developer. I am an Elixir developer, and I wanted something that was going to do a lot of the setup for me so I could just like go. And so Truffle has these things called boxes. So I used the MetaCoin box to go ahead and get my contract set up. Once I did that, I also had to create a Ganache workspace that linked to that Truffle, the Truffle box that I just created, right? And then we have ethers. That's what we're going to be using in the JavaScript to actually talk with Web3 and do all of our interactions. We have, obviously, Liveview hooks. And so I did a little something different with presence that I kind of want to show. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was neat to do. Probably not the most practical, but I thought it was fun. So I went ahead and used it anyway. And then we're just going to do some Web3 things, right? So project is worth 1,000 words. So let's get to it. So I do also want to shout out the PETAL components team because I am a backend developer all of the way. And so this is built with PETAL components, and so I didn't have to worry about styling. And so the first thing we're going to see here, and let me make sure everything is running. Cool. Yep. So the first thing we see here is this is our login page. I have Metamask installed already, but because if we take a look here, even though Metamask is installed, oh, that's what you're going to do to me. Cool. We are going to log into Metamask. So because Metamask is installed, but we are not logged in right now, we can't log in actually use Metamask to log in. And that was a little functionality that was kind of my proof of concept that if I could log in using Liveview and Metamask, then I could do anything I wanted with hooks and all the the JS interoperability. I always mess that word up. That I could do whatever I wanted. And so I'm just going to go ahead and unlock this real quick. All right, and we see I'm not connected technically right now, and I need to switch accounts. If only I had 99 Ethereum. So once again, because it's not connected to the page, we're still not going to get that button. And so what I'm going to do is, which account is it? Is it test account 9, I believe. We good? Haha, cool. So what we see here is these are some transactions that were already part of my account. If we go into the settings, I have this button that's like, hey, do you want to connect Metamask? And I'm like, yes, I want to connect Metamask, thank you. And as I do this, we can see here, it connects to the account. So this is one, and I'm sorry that looks like it's hard to see. So this is one thing that It's going to help us verify our blockchain interactions, or just to verify that this Metamask account actually belongs to me, as we're just signing the message. It's like, signing this message is verification, and blah, blah, blah. And so this is how we're going to be able to log back in. As you can see, my button's changed. Hey, look, Metamask is connected. Cool. So if I log out, we have a login with Metamask button. The reason this button now shows up is because, oh, wrong way. And I'm going to have to make this bigger, so you'll have to give me just a moment. So, as soon as that is mounted, the first thing we're going to do is we check account, and we see that we get a signer. And so when we get that assigner, essentially it is looking on your computer for any type of Web3 accounts that are currently connected to the website that you are on. You can have MetaMask installed, and this is still going to return as an empty list, because if MetaMask is not directly connected to that website, it doesn't have access to your wallet, right? So we're just doing this account check, and when we do that account check, depending on what we get back, we'll programmatically display the button or not. So, which is really cool. And so now, if I click log in with MetaMask, ta-da! So, what I'm doing here is it's just listening right now to my local blockchain for any type of interactions that have to do with this particular account. And so I just wanted some very bare bones, just to show some of the information that we can get back, right? So we've got the transaction hash, the contract that these transactions come from, the to and from, and the value. And so to show kind of how this works, I'm going to click coin transaction here. And it takes a minute, so MetaMask is going to pop up. And so, for once it didn't double pop up, you know what, I will take it. And so essentially here is, what this is doing is, it's going to go ahead and we're just going to send a transaction to a hard-coded address. It's one of the other addresses that Ganache created for us when we started that project. So when we confirm that, we're like, cool. It'll take a minute because MetaMask has to go through confirming it. And we have it there at the bottom, right? That is 5. Yeah. So that's all well and good. I was going to show us how to mint an NFT, but there's a lot that goes into that I did not realize. Definitely not as easy as making a coin transaction. And I am, like I said, not a Web3 developer. So I was like, this is good, this is good. So let's take a look at this code real quick. If we take a look at page live, there's a lot going on here. And just we good? Yeah. All right. So what I really wanted to show here is when we mount, we're using presence to make sure once we verify our socket is connected, we're using presence to track the current user. And so what I'm saying here is, I just want to know when this user in particular shows up. And this is important because I need to continuously listen for any transactions on the blockchain. But I only want to do this when they are on our main page, right? I don't want to be hitting my blockchain continuously if they're on the settings page or they've navigated away. And that is what's amazing about presence is all it takes, if we scroll down, is we call a function is get presence, get by key. I tell it what I'm looking for is the blockchain presence, and then I pass in the user ID because I only care about this particular user. I don't care about anybody else. And so if this particular user is still here, we're going to call some functions to listen for events, right? And so listen for events here is essentially just, we're creating filters, and the Web3x dependency gives us all of this functionality where I don't actually have to use the hooks right now to do this. And so I'm getting transactions, and to do that, I'm calling ETH get filter logs. And when I say get filter logs, let me find the filter function. Event filters, here we go. So right now I'm just listening for transfer type events, right? So there are a plethora of events you can put into a smart contract. For this coin contract in particular, the only event that it has is a transfer event. And so that's really all I want to listen to. And so this filter is going to have some base data because I want to know from the start of my blockchain until now if there are any events whatsoever. And so that's how we filter that page, right? Or we get our users' transactions. And I know we've kind of talked about presence a little bit, in the past day or so. So the base functionality there is PubSub, right? So, and it's just PubSub is sending back a broadcast to my page live where I have a function waiting, and it's the same function that actually called it. So we're recursively calling this, and the reason why I am okay with that is because as soon as our user leaves the page, it stops completely. For something more at scale, probably would find somewhere else to put that. But for something like this, and really I just wanted to play with presence because I had not got to, I thought it was really cool just to be able to do that, all in those functions. All right, so let's talk about these hooks real quick because I kind of skimmed over them. So the hooks that were created to get all of the Metamask information. Let's see. Sorry, I want to make sure y'all could actually see things because I know the text could be small. We talked about how on load, that is what is controlling our Metamask button. We're checking for account, but there's a couple of listeners that look a little bit different, and that's because I am actually pushing the event from my live view. And so when you push an event from your live view to your hook, you actually have to prepend it with phx:, and then whatever, the hook name you've called. And this one in particular just gets their current wallet, and this is how we log in. So when you hit that Metamask button, it fires off the push to our JavaScript. It's like, hey, get the current wallet. And when we get the address from that current wallet, we're able to send it back to our live view, and it's going to hit our handle event for verify signature. And as long as we find a user that has the address and the signature that we are verified we're able to verify that, we log them in. So, yeah. These are, and I know it says this is like a 500 line, it's like a 500 line module, and that is not actually the case. Well, it is, but for the simplicity's sake, I pulled out the ABI for the contract, just so I can just throw it in instead of having to try to programmatically get that. And that's the ABIs are huge. They can be, depending on how many functions are in the contract. So, all it takes to do our coin transaction is, once our contract has been deployed, we have a hook that will create a new contract. It'll take the contract address, the ABI, and it'll take the signer. And with that, we just send the to address and the amount with the contract we just created, ta-da. It is super simple, and Hooks makes all of this very easy for us to do. So once again, like, we don't have to rely on React or go to any other type of frameworks for this. I'm trying to, yeah. So these are our contract event functions. When you, let's go back, not back. Let's talk about like the actual blockchain we have set up right now, okay? So there are some, like I've deployed some contracts, and this is where when you set up Truffle, you just run a function that's truffle migrate, and like as long as you're in the folder your contracts are in, and it does everything you need to deploy those contracts. And so here in Ganache, we're able to see that, even though it's saying Metacoin is not deployed, it is. And so we can see the events that have happened. Even here, we see the 5 events that have happened that correlate also with what we're seeing in our live view. And let's see. When it comes to Web3x, we can actually, so what it does is when you have contracts that you're wanting to interact with, it allows us to actually set those contracts, the information for the contracts, in a gen server of its own. So Web3x runs, what is it called? Contract Manager Gen Server. And all of that information goes there. But we do have to tell Web3x what the name of the actual contract is, and we have to pass it the address that that contract lives at. So once again, I just hard-coded these because I knew what those were going to be. You don't have to. There are functions that we can use in Ethers, and like, but yeah, there's functions we can use in like Ethers and things like that to be able to get this information. So you can programmatically get it. And let's see. I'm just trying to find the functions here. So all we have to do is, after the contracts are deployed, we tell Web3x that we want to register a contract by the name, and we want it to use a particular ABI. So an ABI, and I know I've said this a few times, is application binary interface. It's just JSON that tells us exactly what the functions are in our contract and what they're supposed to return, what they take, things like that. And then once we have registered the contract with Web3x, because we've already deployed it on our chain, we don't have to have Web3x deploy it for us. So we actually just tell it the contract, the address at which that contract is, like it's already deployed at. And it will link those up for us to be able to use Web3x to do anything that we need to, for the most part, when it comes to those interactions. And I do have some deploy. I was playing around with like actually deploying a contract from Web3x, but I will tell you this. This is the most maintained dependency that I've been able to find, but it's still not very well maintained. And so we don't have a whole lot of dependencies or resources for Web3 available, in Elixir, and that's totally fine. Most people, don't think about actual dependencies in Elixir for things like this. This is like, oh, this is all JavaScript based. You need to be writing JavaScript. That's fine. But I wanted to show, like, we can do this without JavaScript, and, like, this is how. But, yeah, so this is that. And, yeah, I think I talked really fast. I did kind of. All right. So, oh, yeah, we can show this. I can show this. let's log out real quick. And let's disconnect from the site. And let's switch accounts. Cool. So I actually want to register. And like I said, so all of this flow here was created with phx.gen.auth. I did pull out, like I am using Tailwind here. So if you do use Tailwind, when you use the gen.auth, the auth generator, you're going to lose all that style, all those styles. And so just FYI, if it looks very, very bad, because styles. And that's where the PETAL components that I used come in. So essentially here, I'm just going to register with a new account. There we go. That is, I know what's going on there. I hard-coded some stuff. Cool. And so if we, I bet you if I change that, you good? You good? Good? This is what you get for hard-coding things to make sure they actually work. Right. So I was going to show that, like, when we do these, like, when we have these interactions, I can do, like, back and forth between these two users. Like, we would be able to see it in real time. I was going to open the window, but hard coding's fun. So, yeah, I think, like, that's probably all I've got for it. Yeah. Cool. Oh.